Welcome to Sim UK. By their own admission, Flight Sim World by Dovetail Games is a title in very early access, and by proxy, this means that we should be able to expect and also to help shape the frequent updates with our feedback and criticism. Well, Dovetail Games have been working very hard on some of our key concerns, and in the last month alone, we have had 3 major updates. These updates include passengers, cold and dark starts, and finally a weather update with the introduction of TrueSKY. So let's jump straight in. First up is passengers. So this update was a bit of an unexpected release. I don't think that I'm aware of anybody who was complaining on the forums that they couldn't see passengers in their aircraft. But nonetheless, here they are, or rather, here they are not. To be honest, I was really hoping to see some passenger animation from within the cockpit. Otherwise, what's the real point of having them there at this stage? Currently, passengers only appear when you are viewing the airplane from an external camera looking in. But the passengers themselves are actually animated. You can see them moving around and they look pretty realistic to me, although at the moment the pilot is not animated. Unofficially, passengers are set to become visible from within the cockpit view too, but this is not something I would expect to see anytime soon. That being said, I can already imagine an A380 or similar with fully animated passengers. That would look awesome, especially if they walked onto the plane and took a seat. I know what you're thinking, what about the FPS hit though, am I right? Well, of course that is a justified concern. Perhaps you have a list of other priorities that you feel need to be addressed first, and I would probably agree with you on those points. But here we have the passengers update, so I'm going to review it. From within the aircraft configuration panel when setting up your flight, we can see the impressive and nicely displayed combination of facts, figures, weights and ranges. Now that passengers, aka payload, have been added, you have some limited slider controls for each passenger and also their luggage. I was expecting to see that the adding and removal of passengers onto a flight would affect not only the weight, but also the takeoff distances and measurements for the aircraft. Unfortunately, it seems that these tabs at this time do not appear to be connected. Quick Edit is also another way which allows you to make quick default changes to your payload. So let's ignore the lack of detail in the setup panels and the missing in-cockpit animations, and let's instead focus on the physics aspect of having passengers in your aircraft. Now, the inclusion of passengers onto a flight should directly affect the flight dynamics of the aircraft, especially GA aircraft. So let's exceed max weight and then try and take off. So, it has a huge impact, I think you'll agree. Dovetail Games do claim that this directly affects your flight model. This is early access and much more is still to come. If this is phase 1 of a multiple phase rollout for passenger inclusion, then by all accounts it could end up being a very capable, impressive and important inclusion to Flight Sim World and flights of the future, especially when we get airliner access. The passenger update apparently also affords you the ability to create custom passengers. What the limitations or possibilities surrounding this are not exactly clear to me yet, but it's an interesting thing to consider. Imagine having nervous passengers for your flight. That could make things entirely different. Now for something that we have all been patiently waiting for, and one of my own personal favourite aspects of flight simulation. It's the cold and dark startup. Even learning the correct procedural steps required to start up as you test and configure your bird ready for flight is a real pleasure, and Dovetail Games seem to want to make this experience even better across their entire SimWorld series. Incidentally, Flight School has now been completely incorporated into Flight Sim World. They are now officially one and the same. I really like this aspect of Dovetail Games' SimWorld franchise, and I think it will really appeal not only to the absolute beginners, but also will likely appeal to the more experienced flight sim pilots out there. Whether or not they'll admit it or not is another story. The reason I think this is because there is a huge amount of satisfaction and indeed pride that comes from learning how to correctly start up a complex aircraft. Not so much for these GA aircraft, but in time, as bigger and more complex airplanes begin to emerge, the complexity will definitely increase tenfold. For example, learning the complex and in-depth procedures for starting up one of PMDG's Boeings is a very complex and very time-consuming process. For sure, there will be some die-hard pilots out there who prefer the old method, but I bet you if they get really stuck on one certain part, then even they might appreciate the ease by which Dovetail Games' startup tutorials can guide you through the process. And of course, you can always turn this feature off and do it the old-fashioned way. Unfortunately, despite some nice features, this is far from being ready for full release. I love how you can grab the clipboard and the headphones from the dash. I like how it changes the audio as a result of placing the headphones over your ears. I like how it lights up the button and or switch/lever that you need to adjust. And looking ahead long term, this is going to be a fantastic feature. But in reality, as it is now, it is buggy, it is incorrect, and at times it is confusing. Each item is listed with a checkbox that auto-fills once you have completed the directive, if you will. Next to that, there is also an autocomplete button. Unfortunately, the width of the checklist is pretty limited, and as a result, the autocomplete option or button on the list generally seems to get in the way. Unfortunately, it seems you cannot resize or move the checklist. Dovetail Games have said that they have built their checklist class to be very dynamic and easily editable for third-party developers, to the point where they can even change the checklist style to one of their own choosing. I do wonder though if they have thought to incorporate external weather conditions into their checklist algorithm, the ability to include or exclude steps based on significant temperature changes, for example. Either way, at this very moment in time, it only incorporates the engine startup procedure for each aircraft. This does mean that there is no pre-startup procedure or walk around, and as a result, it does miss some important things, like applying the handbrake. Also, when a single lever or switch is used multiple times within a checklist, it tends to uncheck itself from the earlier step, if the position has since been adjusted. For beginners, this could be extremely confusing. Also, there are some overlapping text issues, but one small yet important addition is the ability to use the mouse scroll wheel to turn the ignition key. Seems like a small thing, but it makes a huge difference. As a foundation and a glimpse into the future, this is a great feature, one that will eventually serve many people very well, and will almost certainly play a major part in introducing new simulation pilots to the flight sim genre. As it is now though, it is a long way off anything particularly useful and needs a lot more work. I must also say that I was a little disappointed not to see at least some of the cockpit textures improved as part of this release. Maybe there are reasons for this that I am not currently privy to. That being said, avionics across the board, or where applicable, have been updated so that they at least turn on, and there have been a host of small improvements applied to each of the aircraft, which are part of an ongoing wave of aircraft enhancements, too many to mention. Another important feature added is the ability to choose your starting location. This works well with absolutely no issues to speak of. So this offers for the first time real-world parking and taxiing from gates instead of starting directly on the runway. This is a massive part of the flight sim experience. It is a shame, however, that it doesn't show up on the airport map whereabouts the parking spot you've selected is. It would also be nice if you could perhaps allow you to see your most likely taxi route. With the introduction of TrueSKY into Flight Sim World, the in-game clouds have dramatically improved. Watch closely as the volumetric clouds wisp and roll and disappear whilst floating along on the breeze. If you're not au fait with TrueSKY, then join the crew. This is a cloud generating API that's been around for a long time and has been used in some illustrious simulators like DCS World, for example, but it is relatively unknown to all but for those in the industry. A little snippet from the TrueSKY website, if I may. TrueSKY is the most advanced and reliable sky system available, full stop. The TrueSKY SDK generates weather system data and updates in real time, full stop. TrueSKY creates volumetric cloud and atmospheric data on the GPU, comma, and provides real-time access to that data via a lightweight API. The SDK is cross-platform and render independent, so it is a pretty powerful bit of kit. Despite the possibility of real-time weather being supported by TrueSKY, at this time there is no confirmation about when real-world weather with TrueSKY will appear, but Dovetail Games have clarified that real-time weather is coming. And it is clear to see that TrueSKY is a considerable improvement to the cloud aspect of the weather engine that they were using before. So for now we have retained the same theme approach to weather management, exactly as it was before, but the number of available themes has decreased. I can no longer see the cold weather front, for example. In addition to all of this, the snow effects with TrueSKY are really impressive, on a par, if you will, with the rain on the windscreen animation that we all wowed at upon the initial release of Flight Sim World. And icing effects and cloud shadows have also been confirmed to be on their way too, along with the likes of water animation and continued ground improvements. The guys at Dovetail Games also spoke in detail about creating new themes and also about expanding upon the cloud animations that exist within TrueSKY, and this is available on their most recent Twitch live stream. So what can we expect to see next in Flight Sim World? Well, could it be ATC? Could it be real weather? Could it be airliners? Could it be an improvement to night lighting? Well, all of these things have been confirmed to be coming. In which order they come, I don't know, but it seems to be the next big announcement might just be around third-party add-ons. But that is little more than speculation at this point, and I have no further confirmation as to what or who it might entail. So that's pretty much it from me, guys. I hope this has given you a good glimpse into the Flight Sim World game and the improvements that you've seen here and what to expect in the future as well. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Take care of yourselves. Till next time. Goodbye.